mentioned that I'm a cheapskate? And if it's do-it-yourself, then you don't want to spend a lot of money anyway. Here I spotted what would become the Firebolt on the side of the road. I mean, really, why pay for wood if you don't have to? Start by printing off a frame of reference from the internet to use as a guide. I wanted to make this one a little bit smaller than the Nimbus 2000, so I grabbed a real broom to see how long the handle really was. I also divided up the picture into 3 sections and guesstimated that the handle would be around 3 feet. The Firebolt has the same sway in the handle as the Nimbus 2000. It's just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to use the same process, but here I use a yardstick to draw out my lines. After my handle lines are drawn out, I draw out the brown painted area of the broom. I simply use my printout as a guide and sketch it directly onto the board. It doesn't have to be perfect because throughout the internet no 2 brooms seem to be the same. Since I have to trim my bushes again, I will either use these or find something else that works. I am going to cut the broom at the 4-foot mark. This will give me some room to play since I really haven't figured out how I'm going to do the tail. Now I'm going to cut out the handle. Remember, this can all be done with the jigsaw. I will use a bandsaw to save me some time. I will also leave a narrow tail. Right now in my head I'm thinking that if I make the footrest act as a kickstand like I did with the Nimbus, I don't want the bristles supporting the weight because the bristles on this broom are not bound. So this will be something hidden inside that will give it a little support. I don't know how this will work out yet. The finish that's left over from the headboard looks good, but I doubt it will make it as far as the final product. I think that the tail will be the hardest part of this broom, because wood to me is pretty easy. So while I think about it, I will just go ahead and cut the bristles before it rains. I used the same process that I did with the Nimbus 2000, so I won't bore you with that over again. But notice, I beat the rain. Okay, like in all my videos, I make this up as I go along. So here I show you what I tried and what did not work. First, I tried to make the footrests out of wood. I could easily give them the shape they needed instead of trying to mold something. I used soft wood as a test, and it came out really nice after I rounded everything, but it was too flimsy. Then I made a copy of the first, but this time in hardwood, but it wasn't any stronger. So fail 1. Don't use wood for the footrest. I like the idea of using the aluminum rods like I did with the Nimbus 2000, but I didn't think they could handle the 90-degree bends so short. So I thought if I heated them up, I could bend them to any shape, so that's exactly what I did. I cut the rod in half and bent them both at the same time where I could, and matched them up as best as I could when I couldn't bend them at the same time. I thought they came out perfect. Before I moved on with the handle, I needed to trace out the design on both sides so they matched, so I just flipped it back and forth and drew out my lines. The next step is to round out the top and the bottom of the broom handle. It's still a little too flat on each end, so I will change out my router bit and give the broom a continuous arch. Looking at my picture, I can see that the handle design is higher than the rest of the broom, so I will route out the rest of the broom to make the design stick out. It only needs to be a few eighths difference, so here I turn my wrench on its side and use it as a guide. The thickness of the wrench in my eyes would be just perfect. Once my router bit is set, I just route out the lines that I had drawn previously. There's really no magic here, just eyeball it. The sides don't have to match perfect, and no one will know if you didn't stay in the lines when you're done. So the key here is to just ensure your router stays on the flat of the board. Don't let it tilt or parts of your board will be deeper than the others. I think the key to all these projects is sanding. You can make the wood take any shape you want if you apply yourself when sanding. So before we go any further, I will start by sanding with a rough 60 grit to make sure everything is at the level and in the shape I want it. When I think it's good, I will take a piece of 400 grit and do the rest by hand. This will make it so smooth that when painted, the paint will look less like paint. This next step can be done with a drill, a knife, chisel, basically anything that scrapes. I want to mark up the wood below the design. My example pick looks like many vines grown together, so I'm going to try and make it look like an old branch. No rhyme or reason here, I will just mark it up. When attempting to make Dumbledore's wand the first time, I layered white wood stain with dark. This look I thought would be perfect, so I will attempt to duplicate it. Just take some white paper towels and rub it onto the wood. First start with your dark stain and stay below your design. You can actually be sloppy here since we will be painting the top and it will cover any mistakes. Once that is done, give it some time to soak in and dry, and then go to your white and put on the final thin coat. Before I begin painting the broom, I give it one more light sanding with 220 grit sandpaper. This is also an opportunity to clean up any of the stain that found its way to the top of the broom. To keep from getting any paint on my stain job, I will use some painter's tape and apply it directly to the lower half of the broom. Since there is a difference in the height between the two sides, I will just use an X-Acto knife to cut along the raised edge and then peel it away. I'm going to start with a dark brown and then use a lighter brown for a fade type effect. While my first layer of paint is drying, I'm going to cut the tube that will hold my footrest pieces together. This step is totally optional and you can skip it if you don't care to have your footrest used as a kickstand. What I have done here is bend a part of the tube up. You will see how this will work in a minute, but for now, in my head, the lip will be the stopping point of the tube as it turns or rotates. Now for the second coat of paint. This coat is a lighter brown. I don't want to cover all the dark brown. I want most of it to show through to give the broom that kind of two-toned look. After it dries, you can pull your tape to see how it looks and to see if you need to do any touch-ups. I think it came out great, and I got really lucky with the two-tone color here. I really quick make a mark where the footrest will go through the broom handle. Then, to protect the paint job from nicks and scratches, I roll it up in a towel. Choose a drill bit that is the same diameter as your hollow tube and drill out your hole where you placed your mark. Now mark your hollow tube the width of the broom. Remember that you can have it extend a little bit further out because this will be covered by the bindings. Cut your tube at your mark. Remember, this step here is optional if you want your footrest to double as a kickstand. But in my head, I drew out some marks that would prevent the lip on the tube from spinning all the way around. Here I would notch this and then push the lip into the notch, and that would keep it from spinning all the way around. I understand that this is complete overkill, but I really liked how the Nimbus used its footrest as a kickstand, and I wanted to try to duplicate that for this broom and its appearance. I doubt the real one in the movie even did this. Since each footrest will have to share half of the hollow tube, I wanted to make sure to cut the ends so they didn't stick out too far when I shoved them in. So using the hollow tube, I get a feel for how much each will share and how far they will need to extend, and I make my marks and then cut them. To help the paint stick to these, I do a rough sand job on them. Now the next step is all up to you. If you have the artistic ability, you can paint these, or you can get a gold Sharpie and draw them on. But here's what I did. I took a black Sharpie and drew out each of the symbols on a piece of paper. If you want to see what this free-handed drawing looks like, you can visit my Facebook page. I posted it there. I took the drawings and then I scanned them into my computer and then I cut them out using a vinyl cutter. So the stickers you see here were actually drawn by me free-handed. So yes, I know they are not perfect. Once cut with the vinyl cutter, I simply applied them into the order they appeared onto the broom. Now to make the bindings. What I pictured in my head was to take an empty spray can and cut it in half. This was not a full-size spray can. It was about 2 inches in diameter. So if you're going to do this, make sure you relieve all the air pressure out of the can before you cut. Anyway, I cut it out and drilled a hole in it. Then, the cool part was, I took a shower curtain eyelet and I put one in each side of the drilled holes. and then I spray painted it a silver metallic chrome looking color, and I thought it looked fantastic and was very pleased with the outcome. But in the end, the spray can was just too flimsy, so fail number 2. While I had the spray paint out, I went ahead and spray painted the footrests. Normally I would use an aluminum primer, but since the color was pretty close to the original, I just went ahead and bypassed that step. To hide the center of the handle in the bristles, I went ahead and stained them. This would help it blend in and hide the support to the tail. So to avoid the flimsiness of the can, I looked around and found a pipe. It looks like a fence post, but it was much thinner. I'm not even sure what it was, but it definitely had the strength I was looking for. I drilled out the holes, but it was a little too thick for the eyelets, so I will skip the eyelets this time, which to me was quite a bummer because I thought they looked so cool. To set in the footrests, I simply used some super glue, and then I pressed them into the hollow tube. They are so tight that once I shoved them in the tube, with the aid of the super glue, I was sure they were not going anywhere. I let the broom sit for a while to ensure the super glue had enough time to dry. Okay, for this next step you're going to get a chuckle, but instead of cutting another piece of the pipe, I found a napkin ring at a garage sale that I thought would be perfect. It was missing the rest of the set, so I got it dirt cheap. It had the color and the flare I wanted. Instead of trying to feed all the bristles through the ring and getting them really tight, I decided to just cut a bunch of short pieces and glue them down in a position really close to each other. This would give the effect that they were one piece and bound together tight. At first, I thought I would wrap the tail with a bunch of bristles and then build off of that. But as I started feeding them through the ring, I felt I would not be able to get enough bristles to really fill out the tail. As I kept trying to squeeze more bristles through, I saw the wood portion of the handle took up too much space. So I decided to cut that portion off of the tail. I'm making this up as I go along, so this was a bold step, and if it didn't work, I would probably have to start over again. But what the hell? While in a craft store looking for something else, I came across cinnamon broom bristles. This I thought would be a great way to give my bristles some volume, and I could build around them. My intent here is to build a tail like I did with the Nimbus 2000, but this time without the foam. I would use a small dowel and drill a hole, place the dowel in the cinnamon broom, and then build around that. This sounds good in theory, right? The handle was small near the end, so I started with a pilot hole, then went larger. I placed the dowel in the hole and marked it with a Sharpie. I would then put a little wood glue on my dowel and push it into the center of the cinnamon bristles up to my mark until it dried. From here I realized that this was going to work nicely. I just began filling out the tail with as much volume as I could squeeze through the ring, all the way up to the footrest banding. With the small sticks in place at the front of the footrest banding, it gave the illusion of continuous pieces, unlike the plastic looking wood I have seen on all the store-bought replicas. Even when I could not get any more through the ring, I decided to spray a little 3M adhesive on each of the bristles and just shove them in tight. When the 3M dries, none of these bristles will be able to come out. So yes, I cheat, but it really filled out the tail nicely. Once I felt I had enough in place, I trimmed it up to shorten it and make it a little more symmetrical. If I build this broom over again, and I'm not joking, I think I will use a wig on this part. To get the footrest band a higher polished chrome to try and match the napkin ring, I repainted it. The chrome paint came out really nice. My very last step was to spray shellac the entire broom. This would protect the paint, the letters, and the bristles. I covered up the napkin ring since it was already high polished chrome. I think in the end this broom turned out really nice. Let me know in the comments below which broom I should build next. Hey, maybe the Quidditch chest. That would be cool. As always, thanks for watching, and hit that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.